Hi, welcome to the Andrew Buckle book review of Art Out of Time, Unknown Comic Visionaries, 1900 to 1969. Now, predominantly, it's actually more the 1900 period. There's very little later. There's some examples like Herbie and those sort of things, more 60s. There's most of it, I would say, is 1920s, 1910, that sort of period. And there's the various names of all the artists that are mentioned here in this book. And let's turn to the book's got 300 odd pages, 320 odd pages, and it's by Dan Nadel, I should say, Abrams, New York. And I think it's out of print, so you probably should be able to still find copies. I've recently just looked for a copy, and it was still reasonably priced. There were some more obviously expensive ones, but there were still ones available reasonably priced. So there's all the list of the contents there. And then you've got an introduction and you've got a timeline as well down the side, which is always very nice. So you've got all the various things like milk gross, begins neats, whatever it is, baby. Popeye, of course, Chester Gould, Hickory. Now, there's loads of names here that I must admit I am not familiar with, and probably none of these comics ever appeared in the UK. I'm certain it's probably very hard to find any of these. So it's, however, there's obviously a little introduction to each of the chapters, and then you go straight into the comic books. And this is comic sections, and they're obviously not the original size, unless they were that size. That'd be very weird if they were that size. However, what you've got is the comic strips there, and you can see I can't even say that, Explorer Gator. Like obviously Moon Queen. They went for very weird stories back then. I mean, there's some really unusual artwork. And why not? It was obviously a time when they could experiment, they could do all things. What's going to work? What's not going to work? No one knew. So it could be, they could have added superheroes back in the 1900s. Obviously they didn't. So they obviously decided that these sort of humour, these sort of things were more attached. I love the thing that this actually puts something that's not often they put at the bottom there. You've got the actual issue. And I love that. Because it's so annoying when you get these books and quite often you flick through, you think, where's that from? You have to go back to the front or the back and find out where it's actually from. So this one's obviously very sort of, very unusual tale, that one, Witch's Tale. And then you go into The Wiggle Much. No idea. This one obviously is from New York Herald, 1910. So you've got lots of absolutely lovely examples. Now again, I'm certain, this might actually be near enough the size of the original as well. Obviously that clearly isn't, unless that was the size. I mean, that would be very weird. So it does vary. Then my favourite, Herbie, and I love Herbie. Herbie was an absolute superb. I did have, and I regret getting rid of that, the Herbie book that they brought out. Love that volume of Herbie. So Herbie's just great. Ogden Whitney, just superb art, and just completely crazy stories. Absolutely daft. You've got him wandering on in space, and he's sort of going there towards the Earth. He's on a cloud or something. You think, really? You've got sort of monsters of all kinds, and he sort of ends up chatting with them. Those sort of things. Very odd. You've even got, I think, is that how odd? Just noticed that. It's always yes, even got the Queen. Yeah. Obviously, this is back in the 1960s. So you've got the Queen. How weird! That is truly weird. I suddenly thought when I was flicking through, I thought, I know that person. Should do. However, Slim Jim and loads and loads. Just the artwork is just completely weird. And they literally threw this one. They throw in the kitchen sink is definitely apt because this one is you've got literally everything has been chucked onto that truck, and it's all obviously just artwork is superb. I love the artwork, and also the humour is quite obviously of the period. Sometimes when you look at it, actually I can't show that one because some of the humour is perhaps going a bit too far, but still. You've got here Colorama. This one is from Black Cat Mystery. So you've got Colorama there. That looks very, very odd. But still, absolutely superb artwork. And then you've got Hickory Hollow Folks. And this is obviously animal ones. There's very obviously animal ones. You've just got some very strange stories. Milk Roast there. And like most of this book is in colour, so you can go through it. There's some black and white, but most of it's colour. I'm talking about that typical, find something that's black and white. So there's black and white there. But this one as well, oh, that's a very odd one. Frankenstein, that is definitely an odd. 1946. There's Frankenstein. Then Smatterpop. Smatterpop, I don't know, CM Payne. And again, you got one there as well. And you got, oh, I don't know, what's that one? White Boy, White Boy. There's quite a few, well, a lot of pages on some of these. And Gags and Girls, or Gals. That's August 1st, 1937. Just, again, lots and lots of brilliant examples all the way through of different artists. Dauntless Durham of the USA. Now, there's no sort of UK ones. We, of course, did have our own, like with Jane and those sort of things in the UK. But I'm certain many of these did not make it to this country. You've got many more pages. Let's just go through a few more, show a few more examples. Now, some of them you've actually got, I love the fact that you've got here, you've got obviously the top there, you've got the sort of brittleness of the paper. So obviously, clearly, when they've scanned them, these papers are not pristine. They haven't worried about cleaning them up or anything. All around the edges, you can see the browning as it sort of browns around the edge of there. You've got Morris Ketton, Daily in the Bulletin. Comic section, this is Saturday, May the 17th, 1924, the Bulletin. Now, I have no idea where that says. San Francisco. That is a San Francisco one. Hairbreadth and Harry. Just odd names as well for all the various. Form and Style, you've got Los Angeles Sunday Times, you've got another one, Joys and Gloom, Terrors of the Tiny Tads. So you've got a lot of different examples all the way through of all these very unusual artworks. And there's sort of strange ones in the sense of you've got like characters talking to sort of, I don't know what, just wandering around, sort of, not even animal ones. This one is actually just a door that's become a human. It's been obviously just wandered around. Lots and lots of the monkey shines of Mussolini. And some of the artwork is just purely surreal. We've got circus, and also the way that the word balloons and things, all these sort of things, it was all completely up in the air. People literally did lots of things. Now, of course, everything's become a bit more standardised. Everyone expects a particular thing. But you've got here sort of like just someone's just drawn like an arrow, obviously for the text. So instead of the normal conventional word balloon, you've got that. Then you've got some biographies at the back, which is always great, very useful. I love biographies. And the thing is, quite often, one of the great things is sometimes you might actually be able to go off and find some more books. Sometimes I suspect with a lot of these people like Garrett Price, Jefferson McAlmer, Rory Hayes, those sort of people, it's possible that there's no books at all. The examples in this are probably about it. But that's great that they've been included in here. So you've got loads and loads in here. You've got the sources here. You've got all the various. And this is another thing that's always occurs for me, is that there's always a bibliography at the back. So you've got a complete long list of possible other things to go and check out and think, oh, Comic Strip Century, the Smithsonian Collection of Newspaper. Superb book. Absolute superb. Comic book, Art of Dick Briefer. Great comic book artist. Silly Millie is a Dilly. No idea. New York Post in 1947. So there's loads and loads. Of course, a lot of these things are probably pretty hard to find as well, unless you've obviously got access to the New York Post, which I probably haven't. So it's not going to be possibly easy to read. So that's it. I absolutely love this book. I mean, actually, it's just great. Now, I'm not saying I roll around the floor laughing with some of the stuff, because it's not. But it is fascinating to see the times, the period, all the various stuff. And it definitely is of the time. And some of the stuff is a bit definitely of the time. But it's still fascinating. And I thoroughly enjoyed this book. So Art Out of Time, definitely worth checking out. If you're interested in that sort of period of comic books, before obviously like Superman, DC Comics and Marvel Comics and all that sort of things, this is very, very different type of style of comic book, comic strip.